I turned 62 and wore my church pearls because they make me feel seen. Magnolia and fire glossed under August heat, big windows showing Peachtree like a stage, crisp linen that made everyone sit up straight. The hostess said, "Happy birthday, Miss Carter." And I liked the way my maiden name still sounded in a stranger's mouth. Andre had booked the corner banquette under the wrought iron magnolia. He pulled out my chair like a gentleman and set a black Mont Blanc pen beside my bread plate as if it were part of the silver. "Presentation matters," he murmured, slipping a leather folder from his briefcase. Embossed on the tab, Carter Family Trust. My name in gold underneath. The table filled with voices. Cameron, his daughter, arrived first, her perfume crisp as green apple. She air-kissed my cheek without landing. 2 of Andre's golf friends came with wives who wore laughter like jewelry. Marcus texted, "Parking!" Then, "On my way, Ma." A server with a honey-brown bun and neat apron, Kayla on the nameplate, poured my water, eyes soft. "We're honored to have you tonight," she said, and I heard the sincerity, even over the clatter. Appetizers appeared. Pimento hush puppies stacked like little moons, deviled eggs with pickled okra. Andre tapped the leather folder with one manicured finger. "A surprise, Ruth. A way to protect what's ours." The pen glinted under the chandelier. "Before cake?" I tried to joke. "Before anything gets emotional." He smiled like a billboard, professional, permanent. Kayla returned with a basket of cornbread. Her hand trembled as she set the plate down in front of me. Tucked under my fork, a folded green guest check, A3874, edges softened by her palm. I thought it was a cute birthday note from the staff. I slid it into my lap and opened it. Block letters, a steady hand, do not sign. He is lying to you. K, 445550183. Something collapsed in my chest so quietly no one noticed. The room went buoys and echoes. I looked up and met Kayla's eyes for half a second. Fear sat there and something like apology. Andre lifted his champagne. A toast to my wife's wisdom and grace. Glasses lifted all around like they belonged to him. After 34 years of partnership, 32, I corrected without thinking, and a few chuckled. But his jaw tightened, small as a comma. He opened the folder to a tab marked Signatures. Neat stacks, color-coded tabs. Andre's choreography. "This is just a formality. Puts the house, the savings, the annuity, all under the trust umbrella. Avoids probate, protects you if something happens to me. If." The word tasted like aspirin. Kayla reached for my empty bread plate, whisper soft. "Refill?" Her fingertips brushed the edge of the folder, like she wanted to snatch it and run. I pressed the guest check flat under my thigh, with the commandment burning into my skin. Do not sign. "Ruth?" Andre slid the Mont Blanc closer, so close the gold tip kissed the dotted line. He always smelled like cedar and strategy. I already had our notary prep everything. "We'll be home by 10, clean and easy." "What's the rush?" I asked, and Cameron rolled her eyes like it was a silly question. "Birthday luck," Andre said, smiling wider. "Let's be efficient for once." Efficient. The word is what men say when they want you silent. The room applauded something I didn't hear. My son touched my shoulder, warm. "Happy birthday, Ma." But I couldn't look away from the date stamped on the top page. Ayug 12, 2024. Today. He'd planned the paperwork to share a birthday with me like it would feel romantic. "Ruth," Andre said, voice velvet over a blade. "Sign." I folded my hands, feeling the edge of the paper bite into my thigh, and answered with the same smile I'd used to calm freshman mothers for 20 years as a school registrar. "In a minute." "No." Andre's finger tapped the table, soft, final. "Right now, Ruth." I kept breathing like the nurse taught me after Marcus was born. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. If I moved too fast, I'd give the secret away. The guest check burning under my skirt, Kayla's number inked like a lifeline. The second table filled. Cameron's friends with wine voices and her boyfriend, Trey, who called me Mrs. Ruth like he was trying out manners for the first time. Cameron fluttered the place cards like a blackjack dealer. "I already set those," I said. "It's a business dinner," she said, sliding my name toward the chair by the kitchen swing door. Investors want easy access to Dad. She placed her own card at his right, like a queen taking her square. No offense. No offense taken, I lied and picked up my purse. The kitchen door whooshed, and a wave of garlic and flame brushed my face each time it flapped. Servers pivoted inches from my shoulder. Every time I reached for my water, someone grabbed the glass to refill it. It was banishment dressed as logistics. Kayla drifted near, collecting plates with the efficiency of someone praying not to be seen. "Everything okay, Miss Carter?" She didn't look at me. Just the forked tines, the crumbs. "Delicious," I said, because there were 15 people listening who wanted me to be benign. Andre stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and launched into charm. "We're very excited about a new family venture," he said, glancing at Cameron like she'd invented electricity. "Tonight is about celebrating Ruth and securing tomorrow." "Ah," one of the wives cooed, "so thoughtful." The maitre d' arrived with the cake, 3 tiers of buttercream with gold leaf. "Happy 62, Ruth," in looping script. Cameron clapped like she had baked it herself. I had told Andre last week I wanted lemon chess pie like my mother used to make, simple and bright, not a spectacle. The server whispered, "This one is $420, sir. Shall I cut?" Andre didn't blink. "Of course," Andre said, sliding the leather folder between the cake plates. I took a forkful to be polite. The sugar scratched my tongue. I felt like a prop holding a prop. Across the table, Cameron leaned into Andre's shoulder. "Once she signs, we can move, Dad," she whispered, not as quiet as she thought. "Momentum matters." I tucked a stray gray coil behind my ear and put my napkin on my lap, covering the guest check that felt heavier by the minute. I lifted my phone under the table, eyes on the microphone Andre was passing around for compliments. Notes: "Do not sign, Kayla." I typed it twice, like the second time made it truer. "Say a few words, sweetheart," Andre beamed, handing me the mic. I stood. The room swam in warm light and curated affection. "Thank you for being here," I began, voice steady. "For the calls, the cards, the cake." A polite chuckle. "32 years ago, I married a man who loves spreadsheets," I added, more chuckles. "And God bless the people who love numbers, because they keep the rest of us from floating away." Andre's eyes flared, flattered, impatient. I set the mic down before I said something I couldn't unsay. When I sat, the kitchen door slapped my chair again. Irritation flashed across my skin like a rash. Banquet politeness is a prison, if you let it be. Kayla reached for my salad plate, and under the jingling of glasses, she whispered without moving her lips, "Walk-in cooler. Camera blind spot. 3 minutes." I cut another bite of the $420 cake I didn't want, and smiled toward the investors. The Mont Blanc lay between us like a black snake sunning itself. I dipped my head as if to check my phone for a birthday text. In messages, I tapped in 404-555-0183, my hands steadier than my heart. I typed exactly "restroom 5 minutes" and pressed send. I excused myself with the practiced smile of a registrar who's walked panicking parents to calmer chairs. In the hallway, the framed photos of celebrity diners watched me pass like silent jurors. Kayla met me near the restrooms, eyes darting down the corridor that led to prep. 2 minutes, she breathed, pressing a side door with her hip. We slid behind a tower of linen bags, through a curtain of plastic strips, and into the walk-in cooler where the air bit like January. The metal shelves glowed under cold fluorescent. Half pans labeled in Sharpie, okra 811, brisket ends, and a tray of lemon wedges that smelled like clean choices. Kayla tugged off one glove and held her phone between us like contraband. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said, "but I saw you. And I was you." Her voice trembled, but her chin stayed high. "What did you hear?" I asked, quiet as a prayer. "June 3rd, she said, unlocking a folder. "He comes in here with me." "Well, he followed me. Said the kitchen felt like church because it's hot and honest." She winced at her own memory. "He set this on the sauté line." She swiped to a photo, a diamond ring in a cheap black velvet box, balanced on the rim of a stainless pan like it was seasoning. The stone threw little knives of light. Said he'd put a ring on me by Thanksgiving. Said he'd liquidate the Decatur place first so we'd be free of drama. My tongue went dry. The Decatur place is my house. She nodded, shame and anger scuffling on her face. He told the staff too loud enough, that you were signing the trust on your birthday so everything could move fast. He called it an umbrella, said you loved umbrellas. Her eyes flicked to my pearls. I thought it sounded like care. My knees found a crate of limes. I perched before I buckled. Why warn me? She swallowed. Because he asked me to witness something last week. Papers. He had a man with a briefcase and a stamp. The manager said no, liability. But they went outside, and when they came back, he said, all set. Wednesday, we lock it. She twisted her ringless fingers. I told myself it wasn't my business. But seeing you with that pen, she shook her head. I couldn't let you sign into a trap. Humiliation thrummed under my ribs, hot against the freezer air. How old are you, baby? 23. I start nursing prereqs at Georgia State if I can keep hours. My mama's a CNA. We don't have room for men who speak fluently in contracts. I almost laughed. Instead, I memorized her face. Its stubborn kindness. Thank you for the note. I reached for her hand and squeezed. Text me whatever you have. Times, names, anything. She nodded and opened a voice memo, thumb hovering. He left me this too, from June 3rd. A low male whisper spilled from the tiny speaker, wrapped in compressor hum. Once Ruth signs, we're free. You'll have the ring by Thanksgiving, baby. I felt it, in my teeth, my wrists. The cooler light hummed. The plastic strips at the door rattled as a prep cook passed outside. Kayla pocketed her phone. If you go back empty-handed, he won't suspect. I'll bring checklists to the table like nothing's wrong. She took a breath. Please don't sign. I won't. I stood, smoothing my skirt that held the secret like armor. But he will notice I'm gone. The door thunked and cold air sighed out. Somewhere beyond the steel, laughter went up like confetti. My phone buzzed, a bright chirp in the metal room. I glanced down. Decatur Credit Union alert. Withdrawal. $9,500. 8:21 p.m. My breath fogged in a silver cloud. I started, but the alert expanded with a second line. Location, Midtown Branch. Method, cashier's check. The timestamp matched my birthday toast. Kayla's eyes widened. What does that mean? It means, I said, tucking the phone into my palm like a blade. The party just got very expensive. And then my screen lit up with Andre calling. Do I answer? Or let him wonder where I've gone? I answered on speaker so my hands could stay steady. In the restroom, I said, cheerfully false. Lipstick emergency. He laughed, magnanimous as a donor. Hurry back, he said. People are waiting. I returned to the table, signed nothing, smiled at everything, blew out candles I didn't order, and tucked the Mont Blanc into the folder like a nurse returning a scalpel. No scenes. I left with my son's arm laced through mine and a headache like a crown. At home, I did what I've done my whole life when the world tilts. I made a list. The house exhaled as we came in. The lemon oil in the wood. The old rug that snaps at your heels. Marcus kissed my cheek. You okay, Ma? I'm gathering facts, I said, which in our family is code for don't argue with me. I changed into my blue robe, placed my pearls in the ceramic dish painted with violets, and carried the lockbox from the hall closet to the kitchen table. My mortgage file wears a red tab. Taxes, green. Insurance, blue. Paper has weight, and tonight it felt like the only thing that would hold me down. I logged into Decatur Credit Union on my laptop. The $9,500 flagged red. Cashier's check. Midtown Branch. 8:21 p.m. A note. Authorized signer, A. Carter. The initials thundered. Andre and I share a last name, and neither of us is named Anthony, but banks don't verify grammar. Screenshots, I told myself, and did it. Folder name, MNF, day 081224. Then the file, Home Equity Line of Credit, caught my eye. E-Lock Advantage, draw limit, $25,000, opened June 15, 2024. My hand stopped halfway to the tea kettle. The PDF blinked up with my name in stern type, Ruth Elaine Carter. I always sign Ruth E. Carter. My registrar's hand learned to be quick, not ornate. On this document, the signature bloomed like a parade float. Wide loops, a flourish underlining Carter, the tail of the H swooping as if it practiced cursive on Saturdays. I printed the first 2 pages and smoothed them with my palm. Notary Public, Gaines, 009847. The stamp slugged the corner in purple ink, a name I've never said out loud. Witness line, A. Hartwell Carter, Andre's middle name, tidy as a lie. The hum in my ears sharpened to a point. I pulled a sticky note from the drawer and wrote, Gaines, 009847. Who? I added. Midtown branch, cashier's check, 8:21 p.m. and ring by Thanksgiving? The question mark trembled. Paper cuts sting because they're thin and precise. This felt like 100 of them, invisible until salt finds them. I opened the sideboard drawer and found our marriage license to check my 1992 signature. The R tilts left then, compact. The E hooks in. Tonight's R tiptoed right, showy. The E unspooled like ribbon. I traced both with my index finger, a forensic I could afford. Ma? Marcus stood in the doorway, tie undone, sleeves rolled. Do you want me to stay? No, I said, softer than I felt. Go home to Kendra. Kiss the baby for me. He hesitated, then nodded. He knows when I'm bracing. When the door clicked shut, the house went to listening. I set a timer on my phone, 20 minutes to cry if I needed to, but the tears didn't come. The kettle whistled, and I poured over a bag of lemon ginger like I could steep myself into courage. My screen pinged. A calendar reminder I don't remember setting slid into the corner, cheery as a dentist. Sign trust addendum, Wednesday, 10 a.m., Aug 14. Location, A. Carter, office. Under it, a line I hadn't noticed. Invitees, Cameron Hartwell, notary, Gaines. How did a meeting I never accepted get into my calendar? And why is the notary already invited? By morning, August 13th, the heat lay on Decatur like a quilt you can't kick off. I put coffee on and called Marcus. Bring your laptop, I said, and your patience. He arrived in gym shorts, baby spit on the shoulder, and that sun look that mixes worry with respect. We set up at the dining table where bills learned to behave. I slid him the screenshots, $9,500 cashier's check, 8:21 p.m. The HELOC opened Jewel 15, the purple Gaines 009847 stamp. He read like he was chewing gristle. Okay, he said, fingers flying. Start with outflows. He pulled my last 6 months into a CSV, columns snapping neat. Here, look. 3 transfers, $12,000, 0620, $4,500, 0718, $32,000, 0805. Memo line each time, FCL Ops. What's FCL? I asked. Let's see. He Googled like a millennial surgeon, precise, impatient. Fry Clover LLC. He clicked the Georgia Secretary of State portal. Up came a vanilla page that still smelled like fresh glue. Fry Clover, LLC, Domestic Limited Liability Company, filed Aero 6/10/2024. Principal Office, 1776, Peachtree Ard NE, Suite 505, Co-working Space. Registered Agent, Cameron L. Hartwell. Manager, A. Hartwell Carter. There was the name, lounging like it owned the page. I tasted metal. He put his middle name like a disguise from a cheap novel. Marcus opened the PDF of the Articles of Organization. Purpose, brand acquisitions, and lifestyle ventures. He snorted, meaning anything and nothing. Email the documents to me, I said. All of them. He did. Folder, Fry, Clover. I printed Cameron's digital signature and laid it beside the HELOC pages. 2 trails running parallel toward a cliff. Ma, Marcus said, voice careful. Do you want me to call him? No. I shook my head. You have a baby. I will handle my husband. I dialed Decatur Credit Union and spoke to a woman named Teresa, whose voice could soothe a hornet. I need to file a fraud affidavit on a HELOC, I said, reading the account number. Also, I did not authorize a cashier's check at 8:21 p.m. last night. We'll flag it, she said, clicking. A manager can meet you at noon. I stared at the clock. 9:17 a.m. Time moves stubborn when you're scared. On a hunch, I typed Fry Clover Instagram. There it was. 12 posts of beige ambition. Flat lays of leather notebooks, a glass of whiskey sweating on marble, captions about legacy and momentum. One boomerang showed Cameron's hand clinking a rocks glass with a cufflink I recognized, Andre's onyx square. The caption, "Here's to the next Carter chapter." Worn Fry Clover, Bill don't beg, posted 8:05, same day as the $32,000 transfer. I forwarded the link to myself, subject line evidence in caps like a bat signal. The landline rang. Few people have that number. I picked up, thinking Teresa had questions. Silence for a breath. Then a man's voice, muffled like he was speaking into his sleeve. "Stop digging, Mrs. Carter." "Excuse me?" I said, spine straightening, registrar tone sliding on like a badge. "Paper cuts turn to bleeds," he said softly. "You don't want that." "Who is this?" Marcus mouthed. "Who?" Across the table, muscles tensed. The voice smiled without smiling. "A friend of the family. Enjoy your day." Click. The dial tone buzzed like an angry fly. Marcus reached for the receiver like he could pull the caller back through the wire. "We're calling the police." "We're calling a notary," I said, calmer than my pulse. "And a lawyer. And then we're going to the bank." He exhaled, hands on his knees, the way he did before a high school free throw. "I'm taking the day off." "Good," I said, gathering the printed pages into stacks that looked like armor. "Because by Wednesday at 10, they expect me to sign my future away, and I plan to arrive with a different pen." My phone vibrated across the table like a heartbeat. "Andre, should I pick up or let him stew until I've locked the gate?" I answered because cowards love voicemail. I wanted him to hear my breath steady. "Morning," I said, breezy as curtains. "Ruth?" He used the tone reserved for clients and deacons. "Yesterday ran long. Sorry if the surprises overwhelmed you." "Which surprise?" I asked. "The cake, the trust, or the cashier's check?" A beat. "It's all the same surprise," he said. "Security." "Whose?" I asked. He exhaled. "I'd like us to talk. Maybe with someone neutral. Pastor Elaine?" "That's not neutral," I said. "Let's go to Dr. Patel. Licensed, not ordained." He paused, recalibrating. "Fine. But before we drag strangers into our private business, let's remember you've never been business-minded. I shield you from the mess." I smiled into the phone like I'd found a splinter. "Shield or hide?" "See?" he said, voice lowering, performatively pained. "You're combative. I planned a beautiful night, and you disappeared to the restroom for 20 minutes while investors waited. Cameron had to entertain." "Cameron had to move my place card," I said. "To the kitchen door." That was logistics. Paper rustled on his end. I pictured him in his office, blinds half closed, diploma tilted. "Look, we're consolidating assets, Ruth. Putting the house and your modest savings where they can grow. Fry Clover is an opportunity." "Fry Clover," I repeated, tasting the clover like a weed. "And if I say no?" "Then I protect assets without you," he said so smoothly I almost missed the violence in it. "We're not children." My laugh had edges. "I'll be at Decatur Credit Union at noon." "That's unnecessary," he said. "You'll just embarrass yourself. And me." "Then don't be embarrassed," I said, and hung up. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Neutral, huh?" "Neutral like a wolf in a gray suit," I said, grabbing my purse. At the bank, Teresa met us with a folder and concern. "We can freeze the HELOC pending investigation," she said, tapping keys. "You'll sign a fraud affidavit. The cashier's check, if it hasn't been negotiated, we can try to intercept." On the form, a box asked, "Did you authorize anyone to sign for you?" I checked no, so firmly the pen dented the paper. Teresa printed a list of recent transactions. "There's a pattern," she said gently. "Transfers labeled FCL Ops." "Fry Clover LLC," I said. Teresa's eyebrow ticked. "We see it," she said. "We don't police marriages, but we guard accounts." Back home, I set the affidavit on the table like a flag. My phone chimed. Cameron in the group chat she created with the gall of an heiress. "Dad says we're aligning later. The trust is basic adulting, Ruth. Don't make this dramatic." She added a champagne emoji, a knife, then deleted the knife. Coward. I typed and erased 3 responses before settling on the one that would itch under her skin. Adults read before they sign. Within minutes, the door opened. Andre walked in without knocking, as if ownership were a key. He wore contrition like a tailored jacket. "I don't want enemies in my house," he said softly. "Least of all you." "Then stop acting like an enemy," I said, and laid the HELOC pages in front of him.
"Explain the notary. Explain the cashier's check. Explain Fry Clover." He skimmed, jaw set. "You're reading things you don't understand." "I understand my name," I said, "and I understand theft." Cameron appeared in the doorway behind him, perfume first. "This is so negative," she said. "We're building a legacy brand. You're dead weight when you resist." My mouth went cool. "I built a life. You're playing at a brand." Andre raised his hands. "Peacemaker. Let's schedule Dr.
Patel tomorrow, 9 a.m. You'll hear the plan and realize this is best." "Tomorrow 9, I said. "Bring your plan. Bring your notary." He nodded, relieved to have an appointment to hide inside. They left in tandem. 2 flints. The house sighed. My phone buzzed with a new text from an unknown number that wasn't unknown. Kayla. A single line, cautious as a whisper. "I have a longer recording. Play when you're alone." I waited until the house settled into its nighttime creaks before pressing play. Kayla's longer recording opened with the cooler's compressor. Then voices, low and intimate, the way sin leans in. Andre first, slick with certainty. Wednesday at 10, she signs the addendum. I put the house and annuity under the trust. We roll liquidity to Fry Clover. Cameron opens the account. By Thanksgiving, we're in Miami signing the lease. Kayla's voice, small. "What about her?" A laugh I knew better than prayer. "Once Ruth signs, we're free." The word free landed like a door closing. I paused, rewound, transcribed. I wrote the words by hand in my old registrar's notebook. Green cover, college ruled, because ink slows, lies down. When the file ended, I sat very still and felt my pulse drum in my teeth. I set the notebook beside the HELOC printouts, the cashier's check alert, the Secretary of State page for Fry Clover, my paper army. At 8:52 a.m. on Wednesday, I drove to Dr. Patel's office. Neutral carpet. Diplomas lined up like choir members. Andre arrived with a gentle smile and a brand new softness in his voice, the kind men use when they've already decided how the scene ends. "Ruth," he said, reaching for my hand. I let him take it and then took it back. Dr. Patel folded himself into his chair and invited opening statements like we were a tidy trial. I spoke first. My husband opened a HELOC with a forged signature, transferred $68,500 to an LLC managed by him and his daughter, and tried to make me sign an addendum at my own birthday dinner. Andre didn't blink. "Ruth is fatigued," he said mildly. "We had a festive evening. There were misunderstandings, and she's never been comfortable with financial jargon. I'm protecting her." I slid my phone across the coffee table and hit play. The cooler hummed. "Once Ruth signs, we're free." Andre didn't flinch. "Out of context," he said. I was reassuring a staff member that Ruth wouldn't be burdened with decisions, free from stress. "Really?" I said, and placed the HELOC signature beside our 1992 license. "Did she sign this too? The notary who died in 2019? Dr. Patel lifted a hand. "Let's slow down," he said, therapist smooth. "This level of distrust suggests either grievous boundary violations or cognitive distortions on one side. Either way, you both need ground rules." Andre leaned forward, palms up. "My only goal is to secure our legacy. Cameron is simply efficient." "You moved my place card to the kitchen door," I said to the room, "because sometimes a small fact tells the truth better than a grand theory." Dr. Patel scribbled. "Your homework," he said, "is to pause legal escalations for 48 hours and reconvene. Can you agree?" "I cannot," I said. "The house is my only sanctuary." Andre stood so fast, his cuff snagged the chair arm. The left cufflink popped, onyx winking, and skittered under Dr. Patel's bookshelf. He didn't notice. He smiled at me like a man leaving a donation. You'll call when you've calmed down. He left a citrus cologne and the faint squeal of tires. I crouched, retrieved the cufflink, and turned it in my palm, a black square with a hairline crack across one corner. I set it in my purse beside the green notebook like a relic for a trial that hadn't been scheduled yet. That night, the house stretched and settled. At 2:07 a.m., my phone vibrated against the nightstand, bright as a siren. Decatur Credit Union alert. Transfer $12,000 from Joint Savings to Fry Clover LLC. The memo line read, Momentum. My thumb hovered over callbank even as a second alert stacked under the first. Two-factor code requested for online banking. If this wasn't you, contact us. Do I run to the bank at opening or call a lawyer before I put my shoes on? I chose both. Shoes on, bank at opening, lawyer on hold in my ear. Decatur Credit Union doors clicked at 8:30 a.m. Teresa waved me in before the ATM finished its morning yawn. Manager asked me to bring you straight back, she said, eyes taking in the new bruise under my calm. Mr. Diaz, branch manager, had the contained energy of a man who likes straight lines. He slid a folder across his desk. Ms. Carter, good morning. We placed a temporary freeze yesterday per Teresa. Overnight we flagged another transfer attempt. Our system blocked a second draw on the HELOC, but $12,000 moved from your joint savings at 2:07 a.m. to Fry Clover LLC, ACH push not reversible. I'm sorry. My jaw set. What can we do right now? Lock down everything you alone can lawfully lock down. He turned his monitor so I could see. First, remove external transfer permissions from joint accounts. Second, change all online credentials. Third, add a verbal passphrase to your profile that overrides spousal identification. He handed me a form. Choose something you'd never post online. Violet's 1992, I said. The year we married, the flowers on my dish. We moved quickly. New usernames, fresh passwords, two-factor authentication tethered to my number only. He removed Andre's device tokens. Teresa brought hot tea like a benediction. Next, Mr. Diaz said, Fraud Bureau. He dialed the notary hotline on speaker. We read the stamp details together. Gains 09847. A hold, then a voice. Commission gains, deceased December 12, 2019. Commission expired. I felt both vindicated and a little sick. Mr. Diaz's pen paused. We'll include that in the fraudulent signature packet. He printed a black and white of the 8:21 p.m. cashier's check from my birthday night. Camera footage stills in grainy squares. Andre at the counter, the onyx cufflinks bright even in gray. A man at his elbow with a leather portfolio I didn't recognize. The check image showed, Pay to the order of Fry Clover LLC, amount $9,500, memo operating AHC. We've requested a hold with the receiving bank, he said. No promises. My phone buzzed with a text from Andre. I didn't open. Another from Cameron I did. This sabotage is ugly, Ruth. Investors talk. I let it sit. Mr. Diaz tapped a final page. There's also this. Our security flagged an in-person authorization yesterday, attempting to add a third signer to your household account. The ID presented was unusual. We declined. He placed a photocopy of the attempt in front of me. The signature block read, Ruth E. Carter. But the E did a loopy ribbon dance. Mine has never done. He looked at me over the paper. Ms. Carter, did you authorize this cashier's check? The unknown caller waited a single beat after I said hello. Same soft menace as before. It's not too late to let this slide, Mrs. Carter. State your name, I said, calm as roll call. A faint chuckle. Names are for signatures. Then, lower. Gaines is golden. I hit record on my cell and put him on speaker. You're calling a public school registrar who logged 28 years of difficult fathers, I said. This line is recorded. Try me again. A click. Silence. I screen captured the call log and dropped it in my folder, evidence. At 3:30 p.m. sharp, I walked into Spencer and Lyle, DeKalb Square, Suite 402, carrying a banker's box that could have been a baby. Aaliyah Spencer Escuin wore navy and clarity. I laid out the stack. HELOC with gains 00847. Bank letters from Mr. Han and Teresa, the $9,500 cashier's check image, the $12,000 ACH to Fry Clover LLC, the Georgia SOS printout, Kayla's June 3rd recording. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she said, "We move now." "How?" I asked. "Ex parte temporary financial restraining order," she said, typing. "DeKalb County Superior freezes marital accounts from unilateral transfers. We add fraud exhibits, dead notary, voice memo, bank letter. We request an expedited hearing within 5 business days." She glanced up. "And we get you a forensic document examiner today." She dialed on speaker. "Dr. Lila Chen," a voice answered, crisp. By 4:40 p.m., I was in a small lab off North Druid Hills, watching Dr. Chen slide my marriage license and the HELOC signature under a digital microscope. On the monitor, my Ruth E. Carter from 1992 looked like a tidy fence. The HELOC signature looked like someone learned my name by tracing it with a wet noodle. "Note the initial R," Dr. Chen said, stylus circling. "Your 1992 R begins with a downstroke. The HELOC R pushes right, then down, common with simulators. Also, pen pressure. Yours is consistent. The HELOC shows hesitation tremors at the start of E and end of H. I see patching on the crossbar of T, a go back to fix it." She printed comparative overlays, labeled preliminary opinion, high probability of simulated signature. "Full report in 3 days with exemplars, but this is enough to flag." I felt seen in science. "Thank you," I said, and paid her fee. $450 retainer on my debit, receipt clipped to the report. Back at Spencer & Lyle, Aaliyah had drafted the TRO with the satisfying thunder of a woman who'd had enough of men with pens. She read aloud. "Whereas petitioner presents credible evidence of forgery, including notarization by a deceased notary. Whereas funds totaling $68,500 appear diverted to Fry Clover LLC. It is ordered all parties shall maintain status quo on accounts. No transfers over $500 without mutual written consent." She slid a pen across. My pen. I signed Ruth E. Carter, the way I always do. "Filed tonight by e-file," she said, already scanning. "Sheriff will serve him by Friday." "Friday," I repeated, the word tasting like a door I could open. I drove to Magnolia and Fire and asked for the GM. Tony, the name from Kayla's staff schedule, met me by the host stand. I told her I wanted the back room on Friday, August 16th, 7 p.m. "Carter Family Scholarship Dinner," I said. "Deposit?" $500 holds it, she said. "We'll set up the projector and a mic." "Do you need audio from a phone?" "I do," I said. "And sealed envelopes under each chair, open on cue." Tony didn't blink. "We can do tasteful." I Venmo'd the deposit and sent the audio file from a new event Gmail Aaliyah created. Tony tested a clip. A thin ribbon of Andre's cooler whispers bled through the ceiling speakers, low as thunder. She muted it instantly and nodded once. "We're set." Outside, I texted the family and the investors Andre liked to feed. "Scholarship dinner in my name. Friday 7 p.m., M&F back room. Please join me." Cameron replied first. "What scholarship?" Andre's bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "We'll be there." When I reached my car, a black sedan idled 2 spaces over. Window down, a man in a gray suit, portfolio on his lap, watched me the way a hawk watches small animals. He lifted 2 fingers in a little salute. Was that the voice that loved paper cuts? And would he follow me home? Thursday bled into a list: print, collate, seal. I turned the dining room into Kinko's. 15 white envelopes, each labeled in my registrar hand, open on Ruth's cue. Inside each, 1. Dr. Chen's preliminary opinion with the circled tremor on the E. 2. Notary Division email confirming Evelyn Gaines, 009847, deceased, 12/12/2019. 3. Bank letter from Mr. Han, freeze date, $9,500 cashier's check to Fry Clover, $12,000 ACH at 11:47 p.m. 4. Georgia SOS page for Fry Clover LLC with registered agent Cameron L. Hartwell, manager A. Hartwell Carter. 5. Transcript of the cooler recording, June 3rd, 8:14 p.m. 6. A simple timeline with arrows and amounts. No adjectives, Just verbs and dates. Paper is honest if you let it be. Marcus arrived at noon with a portable recorder, and Kendra's calm. "I'll run point on AV," he said, flipping the recorder on. "Back up to the cloud in case someone accidentally trips a cord." I called Kayla. "Dress nice," I said. "Sit near the back with Tony. If I nod, bring the USB." She inhaled. "Is this safe?" she asked, then answered herself. "It's safer than silence." At 4:20 p.m., Aaliyah texted, "TRO filed. Hearing set for Mon 8:19, 9 a.m. Deputy has papers." A second later, a different number buzzed. DeKalb Sheriff. Service scheduled by Friday 6 p.m. I baked lemon chess pie the way my mother taught me. Cornmeal whisper, lemon zest under your nails to steady my hands. I wrote the scholarship's name on a place card. Lillian Jacobs Nursing Scholarship, $20,500 a year. I didn't yet know how I'd fund it if Andre fought me. I knew only that Kayla would not be the last girl warned late. At 6:30 p.m. Friday, I arrived at Magnolia and Fire in a navy dress and my church pearls. The back room glowed amber. Tony had placed the envelopes under chairs like favors. The projector tested a blue square on the wall. The mic waited on its stand. Guests trickled in on punctual Southern time. Investors with their watchful wives. Church friends who liked a story more than a sermon. Cameron breezed in at 6:52, white blazer sharp, tray at her elbow. Andre followed at 6:55. Onyx cufflink glinting on his right sleeve, the left cuff bare where the twin had popped off in Dr. Patel's office. He took in the room and smiled like the king had returned to his banquet hall. "Ruth," he said, kissing the air near my cheek. "Beautiful idea." "I thought so," I said, and checked my phone. 7:01. Deputy texted Aaliyah. "Attempted service, office closed. Next, home address tonight." I slid the phone face down and felt the weight of the cufflink in my purse like a small, dark truth. I had brought it to remind myself. Things break under pressure. I tapped the mic. "Thank you all for coming," I began, voice riding the hush. "Tonight we raise a glass to Lillian Jacobs, my mother, who stitched scrubs at Grady and taught me to tell the truth out loud." Heads inclined, polite. Andre's palm rested on the back of my chair, a little claim. I lifted a hand toward the projector. "We're also announcing the Lillian Jacobs Nursing Scholarship for young women working and studying at the same time because integrity deserves oxygen." A beat. "I'd like to invite my husband to open us in a toast." I looked Andre full in the face and smiled. "Andre?" He lit up, practiced charisma sliding into position. He took the mic, swept the room with that cedar and strategy smile. "To family," he said, raising his glass. "To the woman who trusts me with her future." I reached across the table, palmed the small remote, and felt the button under my thumb like a pulse. If I pressed play now, would the room turn with me or swallow me whole? I let Andre enjoy the weight of the room for a beat. His glass lifted, the easy laugh, the cedar and strategy. Then I set my fingers lightly on his sleeve. "Before you toast, help me with a detail," I said, a hostess asking about napkins. He leaned down. "Now?" 2 minutes, I smiled. "Just us." The room hummed on. Investors adjusting cufflinks, Cameron arranging her blazer into an argument, while I guided him toward the hallway that led past the private dining nooks. On the last sconce, a red LED glowed steady. Security camera. I stopped where the carpet ended and the tile began. He tilted his head, patient for an audience. "What detail?" I reached into my purse and placed the onyx cufflink in his palm, the one that skittered under Dr. Patel's bookshelf. "You forgot this," I said. "Like you forgot my memory works." He closed his fingers around it, eyes flicking up to mine. "I appreciate the return." "It cracked under pressure," I said, and let the metaphor sit. "So did your story." His smile thinned. "Ruth, come back to the room. Don't make a scene." "I'm making a record," I said. I held up my phone the way a choir holds up a hymnal. The voice memo app bloomed red at the edges, not recording yet, just breathing. "Explain Gaines 009847 on the July 15th HELOC when Evelyn Gaines died in 2019. He didn't blink. "Our notary uses a legacy stamp. It's common." "Dead is not legacy," I said. "It's fraud." He stepped closer. Voice intimate, the way a lie will lean in. You don't want to pull this thread. I protected us. The trust consolidates. Fry Clover multiplies. We stop living small. You mean I stop living, I said. Because if I sign, the house moves, the annuity moves, and you move to Miami by Thanksgiving. His face flickered, 1 second of naked irritation like lightning behind a cloud. You lack vision. I have receipts, I said. $9,500 cashier's check at 8:21 p.m. during my toast. $12,000 at 11:47 p.m. to FCL Ops. That's not vision. That's theft with a calendar. He exhaled through his nose, the way he used to at Marcus's coaches. Prove it. I lifted my chin toward the red LED, waved to proof. He followed my glance, then laughed, a low, dismissive sound. Cameras don't catch context. Good thing I brought context, I said, and tapped my screen. The red circle turned solid. Recording. Say again, Andre. What happens once Ruth signs? His eyes cooled, calculating the edges of the trap. We're free, from having to explain every adult decision to you. Say gains, I said. He stared. He would not. So I opened my palm and showed him the thing he'd want to chase. The faint blue stack of envelopes I'd tucked into my clutch, the top one stamped timeline in my registrar hand. His gaze ticked. Greed is a clock. I saw it set. Here's what's going to happen, he said, voice silk over wire. You're going to walk back in there and beam while I toast. You'll announce a sweet little scholarship. We'll sign after dessert. Investors will feel safe, and you'll thank me later. I'm done thanking you for my own money, I said. He slipped the cufflink into his pocket, squared his shoulders, and leaned into my ear so close I could count his lies. If you embarrass me, Ruth, you will not like my response. The threat was so small, it felt childish. I smiled the way women do when we choose the public over our fear. Let's go find out. I slipped the phone into my palm, thumb on the red circle, and turned toward the doorway where the room's applause waited. Just as Kayla appeared at the far end, eyes wide, mouthing, "Ready?" I nodded, lifted the remote in my other hand, and walked back into the light. Do I press play before he speaks, or let him bless the room with his own rope? I let him bless it. To family, Andre boomed, Mike catching his baritone like a sail. To the woman who trusts me with her future. He turned to kiss the air near my cheek again. His palm grazed my shoulder, proprietary and rehearsed. Open your envelopes, I said into my mic, cutting a clean line through his sentence. My registrar voice carried. Decades of assemblies taught me how to part noise like water. Chairs nudged, paper rustled, heads bent. Ruth. Andre's smile stayed on, but his eyes went blade flat. What is this? Receipts, I said, literally. Investors pulled out pages. Dr. Chen's preliminary opinion with the tremor on the E circled in red. The notary division email stating Evelyn Gaines, 009847, deceased, 12/12/2019. Mr. Hand's letter with the $9,500 cashier's check and the $12,000 ACH, Georgia SOS showing Fry Clover LLC with registered agent, Cameron L. Hartwell, and manager, A. Hartwell Carter, and my timeline with arrows between dates and dollars. A murmur rippled, the sound of linen learning to eavesdrop. Cameron laughed too loudly. This is cute, she said, turning to the room. Ruth she's sentimental. She doesn't understand corporate structures. We're modernizing the Carter portfolio. Modernizing with a dead notary? Someone at table 2 asked, a man with a tie that cost more than his sense. I lifted the remote. Let context speak. The projector washed the far wall in cool blue, then the audio file pulsed. Compressor hum, clatter of pans. Then Andre's voice, intimate and unmistakable. Wednesday at 10, she signs the addendum. I put the house and annuity under the trust. We roll liquidity to Fry Clover. Cameron opens the account. By Thanksgiving, we're in Miami signing the lease. A woman at table 4 clapped a hand over her mouth. Kayla stood at the back near Tony, hands clasped at her apron. She didn't move. On screen, the waveform fluttered. Kayla. What about her? Then Andre again. The word free stretched like a hammock. Once Ruth signs, we're free. For a second, Magnolia and Fire forgot to breathe. Andre moved first. He strode to the projector cart as if it had insulted him and reached for the power strip. Marcus was faster. He stepped between and lifted the portable recorder so it caught the room from a second angle. "We have backup," he said, calm as a crossing guard. Andre pivoted to charm. "Friends," he said, raising his hands like doves might fly out. "You're hearing private words ripped from context. My wife is hurt. This display is beneath us." I took the mic back. "Beneath us is where you put me, at the kitchen door," I said, and nodded toward the swing door beyond which servers moved. A thin laugh, ugly with recognition, flickered across Cameron's face. "Defamation has consequences," Cameron snapped, stepping forward to grab the mic. I didn't let go. The sound squealed. Trey stood half up, like a man practicing chivalry with someone else's wife. "Defamation is false," I said evenly, and gestured toward the envelopes. "Those are facts. If any page in your hand is untrue, say it now." Table 3, the investor table, went still. The salt and pepper man with the Rolex cleared his throat. "I'm out," he said. "We don't do business with fog." His wife folded the envelope and set it on her bread plate like she was burying something small. Andre's jaw clicked. "Everyone sit," he commanded, the pastor voice gone, banker voice unsheathed. "Ruth, enough." I turned to Kayla. "You can go home, baby," I said into the mic so the room would understand who she was. "Thank you for telling the truth." Kayla's eyes shone. She shook her head. "I'll stay," she said softly, and Tony slid closer like a bodyguard. Andre reached for the mic again, missing by honor, catching air. Cameron lunged, this time for the projector cable. Tony stepped in with a manager's authority that could move hurricanes. "Touch my equipment, you leave," she said, eyes on Cameron's white blazer. The room liked that. A few people even clapped. Then the back door opened, the one that usually exhaled garlic and joy. Tonight, it exhaled authority. A man in a tan uniform stepped in behind the maitre d', clipped leather folder under his arm, silver badge catching the chandelier. His voice was polite and public. "Evening. I'm looking for Andre Hartwell Carter." Andre froze, finally. The cufflink in his pocket clicked against his keys. The deputy looked around the room, eyes landing on my husband's immaculate suit, and repeated, clear as a bell over the linen and the money and the lies, "Andre Hartwell Carter?" And Andre did the one thing I had not expected. He smiled at the deputy like it was an old friend and took one casual step, left or right, that would decide whether he ran or stood. He stepped left, toward the side door, and the deputy slid neatly into that space like a chess piece finding its square. "Mr. Carter," he said again, polite as Sunday. "Service of process." He opened the tan folder and drew out papers with a tidy snap. "DeKalb County Superior Court, case number 24 CV 0819, temporary financial restraining order. Hearing Monday, August 19th, 9 a.m., courtroom 3B. Cameron laughed, brittle. "You can't serve him here. This is private." "It's lawful," the deputy said, unbothered. 7:22 p.m., service affected. He held out the acknowledgement. Andre's jaw moved, but he signed, A.H. Carter, the H longer than truth. The deputy tore off the goldenrod copy and handed it to me. It was warm from his hand. A sound went through the room, half gasp, half relief. At table 3, Rolex cleared his throat. "We'll pass on the fund," he said to no one and everyone. His wife slid their envelope, my timeline, back into its sleeve like closing a book. Another woman, Dr. Morales, pediatrician, touched my elbow on her way out. "If you need an affidavit, call me," she said. "I heard what I heard." Andre angled toward the mic, smile pasted on with desperation. "Friends, please, let's not make a circus." He lifted a credit card at Tony. "Tab." Tony glanced at her handheld, then up, all manager. "I'm sorry, sir, this card declined." A hum ran across the room like a low organ note. Andre tried the second card. Declined. He looked at me then, fury brightening the edges of his teeth. I set my $500 deposit receipt on the table, added 206 times for the extra hors d'oeuvres, and signed the slip with the hand he tried to steal. Ruth E. Carter. At the back, Kayla touched Tony's arm. She was pale, but upright. "That man," she whispered, nodding toward the bar. A gray suit with a leather portfolio watched our storm like weather. "He's the one who came with the stamp the night they took it outside." The portfolio clicked shut. The man slid off his stool and left like smoke. Cameron cornered the deputy. "Do you know who my father is?" she asked, voice gummy with entitlement. "Yes, ma'am," he said without sarcasm. "That's why I served him by name." He tipped his hat at me. "Ms. Carter, if you want a police report for tonight's incident, DeKalb non-emergency can log it. Might help your case." Tony stepped in, hands folded like a prayer and a shield. "Mrs. Carter, I can provide a statement and send security footage of the private hallway and AV tech logs." She looked at Andre. "We won't release anything without a subpoena, but the timestamps exist." "Noted," I said, and my voice didn't shake. The room emptied in twos and threes, cocktails half sipped, opinions half whispered. Trey hovered, uncertain which way the wind was moral. Cameron hissed at him. He went. Andre stood last, fists in pockets, the cufflink in one, like a stone. He leaned close enough that only my pearls heard him. "Enjoy the theater," he murmured. "Monday, the judge will remind you who I am." I smiled like a registrar who has seen every kind of bravado. "On Monday," I said, "we'll all be on record." When I got to my car, my phone lit. Aaliyah Spencer, Escarcer. He just emailed a global settlement proposal, confidentiality clause, house to him, $10,000 to you. "Do you want to see it tonight or burn it unread?" I stared at the subject line. Settlement draft, urgent, sign by Monday 8 a.m. Do I take the call now or let him stew while I sharpen my terms? I took the call. "Open it," I told Aaliyah, putting her on speaker over my kitchen table where the envelopes sat like quiet soldiers. She read the bullets in a courtroom voice. "You waive claims, he keeps the house, you get $10,000 and a promise of continued care, non-disclosure, non-disparagement, destroy all recordings." I laughed once, short. "Reply with one line," I said. "No." Saturday, August 17th, 10 a.m., I was at Spencer & Lyle with coffee and a spine. Aaliyah drafted our counter in clean, merciless clauses. 1. Annulment of HELOC. Ending, 4419. Notarization declared void ab initio due to Evelyn Gaines, Auto 9847, deceased. 2. Marital separation agreement, Decatur House, parcel 15 183 09 0114, exclusively to Ruth E. Carter, mortgage solely retitled within 30 days. 3. Restitution, $60,500 returned to my account within 72 hours, $7,200 for fees, $2,500 seed to the Lillian Jacobs Nursing Scholarship. 4. Fry Clover, LLC, immediate removal of Cameron L. Hartwell as registered agent, dissolution filing within 10 days, no use of my name on any filing. 5. No contact except via counsel until the hearing. 6. Confidentiality, none. "We don't hide crime," Aaliyah said, eyes kind and flint. "We sent it at 11:42 a.m. Silence until 2:18 p.m., when Andre's new lawyer replied with italics and heat. "Your demands are punitive." Aaliyah forwarded without comment. I baked another lemon chess pie and printed one more set of Dr. Chen's overlays. There is a peace in cutting straight lines. Sunday at 4:05 p.m., Cameron called from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Her message shook with sugar. "We can fix this, Ruth. Investors are nervous. Pull the stunt down, be gracious, and we'll be generous." I saved it in evidence. Monday morning, August 19th, I put on a navy suit that didn't forgive and the church pearls. Marcus drove. In the security bin, I set my purse, my phone, and Andre's cracked cufflink, a relic and a reminder. Courtroom 3B smelled like wood polish and consequences. Judge Holloway took the bench at 9:06 a.m. Aaliyah spoke like a metronome. Dates, amounts, exhibit numbers. She played 30 seconds of the cooler recording and set Dr. Chen's preliminary in the evidentiary stream like a stepping stone. Andre's lawyer objected twice, overruled twice. Judge Holloway's glasses slid down his nose. "Mr. Carter, I am concerned about the notary issue and the transfers. I am maintaining the TRO." No transactions over $500 without mutual written consent. Ms. Carter will remain in the home. Any attempt to list or encumber the property will be treated as contempt. He turned to me. Ms. Carter, you will file your forgery complaint with the appropriate authorities. This court is not criminal, but it is not blind. Outside the courtroom, the air felt like the first honest breath in a week. Andre stood with his lawyer, pale under cedar. Cameron was not there. Aaliyah's phone vibrated. She glanced, then handed it to me. An email from Andre's counsel. Client will stipulate to annulment of HELOC, transfer of property, restitution of $68,500 within 48 hours, attorney's fees $7,200. Fry Clover to dissolve within 10 days, mutual non-harassment, no confidentiality. I read it twice, because winning needs proof, too. We'll want a wire, Aaliyah said, already typing routing and account. And signatures today, at 12:11 p.m. I'm in a small conference room with a sweep second hand that clicked like a clock finally repaired. Andre signed, A. Hartwell Carter, every page of the marital separation agreement, the HELOC annulment, and the Fry Clover dissolution consent. A proper notary, S.R. Benton, commission 117032, stamped each with blue ink that smelled like new chances. Why are you doing this? Andre asked me when the last page left his pen. Because you taught me to read, I said. I just learned to read you. At 1:46 p.m., my bank app pinged, incoming wire $60,500. A second, attorney fees $7,200. A third, $2,500, Lillian Jacobs Nursing Scholarship seed. I saved the screenshots and closed my eyes for one long, private hallelujah. At 3:03 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Kayla. A photo of a white envelope with a blue crest, Georgia State University, and her hands shaking around it. I called, and she laughed into my ear. I got in, Ms. Ruth. Nursing program evening cohort. Deposit $12,500 due in 10 days. I walked to my desk, opened my checkbook, and wrote, pay to the order of Georgia State University, $12,500, memo Lillian Jacobs Nursing Scholarship, Kayla. The ink dried as if it had been waiting all my life. When I lifted the pen, the house felt new, quiet as a church after the choir files out. Then the doorbell rang, once, twice, urgent. Who was standing on my porch now? Someone to congratulate me, or the gray-suited man with the portfolio and one last threat? The doorbell that afternoon was just the deputy, polite as before, handing me stamped copies of the HELOC annulment and the TRO extension like they were hymnals. For your records, Ms. Carter, he said. I slid them into the banker's box labeled Evidence and put the box in the hall closet behind the Christmas lights. Some victories you keep where joy lives. A year later, August 16, 2025, magnolia and fire glowed the same warm amber, but the room didn't tilt anymore. Tony hugged me like kin. Back room is yours, Mrs. Carter, she said. Projector, mic, lemon water, and a pie from your recipe. Staff calls it the Ruth Pie now. Kayla stood near the doorway in slate blue scrubs with Kay James. Nursing student stitched neat over her heart. Her braid was tucked up in a bun that meant business. Look at you, I said, palms on her shoulders. You look like you know what you're doing. She laughed, softer than the first time I heard her voice in a freezer. I do. Some days. She handed me a glossy program, Lillian Jacobs Nursing Scholarship Dinner, Class of 2025. Under it, 5 names and little stories. Night shift cashier, single mother of twins, a girl who survived a house fire and decided to learn burns from the inside out. I traced the letters like Braille. Marcus set up the portable recorder out of habit. Kendra balanced the baby, no longer a baby, on her hip, the child's hair slicked with blue bows. Church friends came, and a few investors who had learned to spend their money like it could hear. Joyce, from Keller and Rowe, dropped a bouquet of violets on my table, with a sticky note. Still not coming soon. Ever. Jay. When I tapped the mic, it didn't feel like a weapon. Just a tool. Thank you for coming, I said. Mama always said you measure love by who shows up when there's a mess. So consider yourselves measured and treasured. Laughter warmed the rafters. I lifted a small, framed square in my free hand. Andre's onyx cufflink, mounted on black velvet with a brass plate beneath. The last thing he left. People leaned in the way Southerners do when a story's about to earn its cornbread. We built this scholarship because a waitress slipped me a note instead of watching a woman drown, I said. We fund it because women like Kayla keep the world stitched together. I nodded to Kayla, who squeezed her hands into fists to keep from crying, and then failed gloriously anyway. She came to the mic, voice steadier than June air. I start my clinicals at Grady in September, she said. I want to be the kind of nurse who notices the small things before they get big, like a bruise under makeup, or a woman smiling too hard at a table she paid for. A hum of agreement, a few hard yeses from the back. Between courses, Tony slipped me a flash drive. Security footage from last year, she said. For your files. I smiled. I hadn't needed it, but I liked the symmetry. Camera red lights blinking for me this time. At the end, we served lemon chess pie for everybody, and I ate the slice I wanted down to the last sugared crumb. On my way out, I left an envelope at the host stand. Deposit $2,500 for next year's cohort. Put it under Lillian Jacobs, I told the new hostess. She taught me not to whisper when the truth has a microphone. The night air on Peachtree felt like possibility. A group of women caught my arm at the door, one in a church hat, one in a denim jacket, one with a librarian's pin. We're starting a clinic night scholarship circle, the hat said. Little amounts, loud receipts. Count me in, I said. On the way home, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a photo of a napkin folded in a small square. My name written on the outside. Inside, not a warning, but a hand-scrawled thank you. Because you said no, I learned how. K. I smiled so wide, my face remembered 22 again. Back in my kitchen, I set the new note in the violet dish with my church pearls, a shrine to choices. I breathed in lemon and paper and the quiet of a house that stayed mine. Then, somewhere deep in the hall closet, a box settled with a soft thud like punctuation. Enough said for now. And if anyone ever slips me another note at a dinner table, this time I know exactly what to do with it, and with the person who thinks paper can still silence me.